We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek Tezvav, volume 15, the third Sicha for the Parshas Chyay. This is a Rashi Sicha, but the Rebbe spoke this Sicha to show from the Parsha about the importance of girls even before the Chasana, even at the age of 3, need to light the Shabbos candles before Shabbos and before Yom Tov, that they too, this was actually the tradition. And the Rebbe basically renewed the tradition. The Rebbe brings out that from this parsha we see very clearly how the special lighting of Sara, that she, of Rivka, that Rivka lit the candles, and Dafke, her candles had that special miraculous occurrence that it lit from one Erev Shabbos to the next Erev Shabbos, not the candles that Avram lit. Rivka was 3 years old at the time, according to Rashi. She wasn't married yet. That miracle brought about that Yitzchak ended up marrying her. Vayikach, he took her, he married Rivka, following, as the Rebbe will explain in the Sira. The Rebbe brings out several inyonim nifloim that we see from this Rashi, all in support, and a tremendous chizuk for this mifsa, Neir Shabbos Kodesh, from this Rashi. But first, the Rashi is a detailed explanation of the Rashi, that Rashi brings down that there were 3 great miracles, basically, that took place when Rivka was brought into the tent where Sara used to live, and there was a lighting of the candles of Erev Shabbos stayed till the next week. There was blessing in the dough, and there was a cloud on the oil. They all came back when Rivka they left when Sara passed away, and they came back with Rivka's coming. And the Rebbe explains how Rashi knows all these great miracles, what's bothering Rashi, and how does he figure out, and many details, but let's do insight step by step. Okay. Aleph. Okay, sorry, Gimel Aleph. So the pasuk says, "Vayivieho Yitzchak oihelo Sara imay," that Yitzchak brought her to the tent, and the tent of Sara imay, his mother Sara, etc. That's what the pasuk says. After all of the miracles and after what took place with the Shaliach Eliezer, Eved Avram, he went with the camels down to house of Lavan. He brings back Rivka after the whole story. So it says, "Vayiviel Yitzchak oyelo Sara imay v'gomer." He brought her to the tent of his mother Sara, etc. So is Rashi mighty von dem Posuk the Werter ha'oyelo Sara imay. Rashi quotes from the Posuk to the tent of his mother Sara. When he's mefarish, but Rashi explains the verse a little different. He says like this: He brought her to the tent, and then not the tent of Sara imay, but he brought her to the tent. V'harehi Sara imay, and he saw that she is like his mother. She is his mother Sara. What does that mean? Kloimar, to say, as she says. The Nasis Dugmas Sara imay. She became similar to his mother Sara. What was the similarity? What became similar? So Rashi explains. Shekol's man Sara kayemes. For as long as Sara was alive, Hoyon Neir Daluk me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. There was a lit candle, flame, a nair was lit It stayed from one Friday up till the next Friday when they lit a new one. So miraculously, the flame lasted for an entire week, from one Erev Shabbos to the next Erev Shabbos, when they lit it anew. The other miracle was Ubracham. This was all when Sarah was alive. Ubracham etzuya beisa. There was blessing in the dough. Various different ways to explain what does it mean, the blessing in the dough, that it was very satisfying, it was very tasty. But either way, it means there was a blessing in that dough. Further, in the third thing, va'anon koshur al ha'oil. There was also a cloud that was tied on the tent. What happens with Mishamesa? Once she dies, Pasku. So then they cease. Ukshabasa Rivka Chazru. And then when Rivka came back, when Rivka came, Yitzchak brought her to the tent. By these Sara Imai, all these three great miracles return. That's Rashi. So, why is Rashi not translating Poshet that he brought her to his mother's tent? From the language of the Pasuk, it says Ha'oyhelo, to the tent. Should say La'oyel Sara Imoy. Similar. It seems like Ha'oyhelo to the tent. And then Sara Imoy. That's the second step. The Farshim Taichin. The Farshim translate as Rashi is Medayik Zain Pirush. The Rashi derives his interpretation from the word ha'oyhelo, from the word ha'oyhelo. V'shteit par Sara Imay, which is written before the words Sara, his mother. If the interpretation, the meaning, the simple meaning would visizetois in pashtus, as it seems, as it appears, simply, literally, when you read, it seems that Sora Imoy is that uptouch von Oyelo, that the Sora, his mother, is a translation from the Oyelo. He brought her to the oil of whom? Of his mother Sora. In oil for Sora Imoy, in the oil of Sora Imoy. That would be the simple translation. But if that was the case, on Gedav Stein, not Ha'oyelo Sora Imoy. Should have said not Ha'oyelo, but Oyelo to the oil of his mother Sora, or the Lo'oyel Sora Imoy. As Kenober Nitstein, Ha'oyelo Mitahaya idea, but can't say Ha'oyelo to the oil, which already the known oil, and then tell you what it was badait asis shen yedua vemes oil dosis. That points to the meaning. That means we already know he brought it to the tent. To the tent. The tent means we know what tent we're talking about. So why is he saying ha'oyhala on the pasuk and then sorry? But Furnam Rashi and Pirush. That's how Rashi knows this commentary. As mitvayivi'eho Yitzchak ehelo, when the pasuk says Yitzchak brought it to the oil, is the name of Gishlosim. That's a period. That's closed. He brought it to the oil. Or Sara Imoy is Nochaninyan. And then there's an additional aspect that she is sorry, his mother, Bahari, he's sorry Imoy. And it turns out that she is like his mother Sara because of the miracles that came back with the return, with Rivka coming into Sarah's tent. So he brought her to the tent. That's the tent, that's Sarah's tent. We know that, Harel. And Sarah Ima is Harihi Sarah Ima, she's like his mother. But still, the Rebbe says we have a few problems with this explanation. Like them Hesber is aber nicht verstandig. According to this explanation, we don't understand Aleph, number one. If the whole issue is because after Ha'oyela comes Sara, why, how we fit it, he doesn't have to quote from the Pasuk Imoy. Every word is precise. So if Rashi's not explaining really Imoy, just explaining why Ha'oyela, uh, and then it says Sara, so he should have just brought the Ha'oyela Sara, Aleph. But what is Rashi? Was jeder Wort sein, der ist so gerecht. How come Rashi? Every word of Rashi is counted. Mighty from Posik, euch dem Wort Imai. He quotes from the verse also the word Imai. Der Diuk und Hechrech is doch verbunden. Rashi derives, and what forces him to say this pshat, ha'oyel v'harehi, is doch verbunden mit them, that is tied with the fact was nochun ha'oyel kum sora. Why would it say Sara after Ha'oyela? So it means that Ha'oyela is a stop and then Varisa. Without those word Imai is nit negayet zum diuk, but the word Imai isn't connected, is not important for this diuk to derive this pshat of Rashi. But the Nigidaft Mater has Nigidaft Matik Zayin. Rashi should not have quoted the word Imai also from the Pasuk. That's number one. So we need to further understand what the Mefarshim explained. There must be more. And then Rashi goes into great detail. Rashi just wants to explain that he doesn't have to go in and tell you about all these miracles. Could just say that she was like a mother. There were miracles there, and she continued that without going into the whole arichas to detail the precise three miracles. Base. But most types Rashi, why does Rashi translate as Varihi Sorima meant? What is it? Misorima calls man chulu, for as long as there was Sara alive, as I'm given there by Nisim that there were miracles. So Bachlav, we don't need to even say that there were miracles. Why does Rashi not sufficient to just say as ihre Meisim seine given that her actions were like her mother saw. We don't have to even say that there were miracles. And number three, the Rebbe is going to ask, even if we do want to talk about miracle, why all these details of this miracle? Gimel, Rashi hota hechrech as the is given on this. Even if we should assume that Rashi has some kind of a proof that there was a miracle. But where do we take all these three miracles? But in the simple, literal level of the pasuk, it is not evident. Is given what kind of a miracle there was. No proof for that. But and for sure, as in it muchrach, and for sure it is not necessary. We don't have evidence as that there was more than one miracle. And even more, where do we have the basis for all these miracles? As given the alle drei that there were all of these three details. That's not evident in the simple meaning of the pasuk. In Targum Yenus and Benazil, we actually see in the Targum of Yenus and Benazil, although his teachings, his explanations are further than Rashi as far as the literal meaning, he doesn't talk about all these miracles. As bringt nor dem prat von Erdol. He merely brings the details of Nerdol. So basically, Where does Rashi know that there were miracles? Where does Rashi know there were all these three miracles? And from the fact that Rashi quotes Imay is mashma that there is something to do with that quote as well, as the Rebbe will explain. And the Rebbe is going to say now that we can't say maybe actually this is not from Shuta Shal Mikra. This is because the Medrash, but the Rebbe has already pointed out many times, as the Rebbe will discuss again in this Ois Beis, that Rashi doesn't bring just Medrash Agode when it is not necessary and brought out from the Pshuta Shal Mikra, the necessities for das Shutla, as the Rebbe will explain. Base. We could have possibly say, as Didrai Protim was Rashi bring the Pirusha, that these three details that Rashi brings in his commentary, Zainen Take nit Muchrach Loit Pshute Shel Mikra, are actually not necessary or forced out, no proof for them in the simple meaning of the pasuk. Nor bringt them drash from Medrash Rabbah in Shayches zum Pshat HaKosem, but rather Rashi brings the expounding of the Medrash Rabbah as it relates to the simple meaning of the pasuk. Und der Fahrt zeichnet Rashi on the Moker. That is why Rashi points to the source by Msim from Zayin Pirush at the end of his commentary. It says Bereshis Rabbah, that it comes from Bereshis Rabbah. That really this is not pshat, but this is taken from the Bereshis Rabbah. And the Rebbe says sometimes the references that are in the Rashis were put in there by the people that published the Rashis. They added references, but this, the Rebbe says, looking in the handwritings of Rashi, seems like Rashi himself put it in. Warum von the Kisve Yad from Pirush Rashi is kenting, from the handwritings of Rashi's commentary, you can tell, as them see in Bereshis Rabbah, that this reference, the Bereshis Rabbah, this Rashi, is those Rashi's Loshen, that is Rashi's language. Nita Haisofa v'de Matikim. This is not an addition from those who copied the Rashi. As it is in many other references in Rashi's commentary, in which the reference is not from Rashi himself. So what the Rebbe says, aber levad zois, but besides the fact, the Rebbe says, okay, so let it be levad zois, was onemedik afilas the drei gebracht in yonim, that even if we are going to assume that these three above mentioned, the things that Rashi brings down, they are taken and they're based entirely on the expounding of the Bereshis Rabbah. And these are not shutish, it's not for the pasuk itself, does not tell us any of these or these three things. So even though it's not verstandig, so it's still not understood. In that case, Aleph, number one, was is Rashi mashmit dem vierten Prat, was wird gebracht in Medrash? How come Rashi does not bring down, he leaves out the fourth detail, which is brought in the Medrash? The Medrash also says the losois, psuchos, the revacha. The doors were opened widely by Sara, and they returned with Rivka. But so if their meat is Rivka given dugma Sara imay. Also with this part, that the doors were wide open, she was similar to Sara, his mother. Why doesn't Rashi bring that down? Base and number two, Avostel Rashi the drei protim in agendert, and how come Rashi writes these three details? He changes from the order of the medrash of his source, if the basis is just the source of the medrash Rabbe, Rashi changes it. Well, not only does he change, he just switches around opposite. Auf a kerten seder, an opposite order, diese werden gerechnet as they are counted in medrash. The medrash, it starts on kosher al pesach oil. The first thing he mentions there was about the cloud that was tied on the entrance to the tent, which Rashi brings down last. Then bracha, and then the third thing in the medrash, it says v'ner dolug v'chulu, the lit of the candle that was lit for the whole week. That is the third thing in the medrash, and Rashi brings it first. So besides all this, the Rebbe says it's very difficult to accept that Rashi's entire basis is the Medrash Rabbah, and that it doesn't have, it's not necessitated out of the pshat in the pasuk itself. To begin with, it's difficult to say, as Rashi meint der mit blois aromregen adroshos chazal, that Rashi means just to bring down an expansion of our sages of blessed memory by quoting what it says in the Medrash Rabbah. So to geret fil mol in Asboras Ata, we already discussed many times when we explained the reasoning. Pavos Rashi der nit b'derech klal the mocker from the Perushim. Why usually Rashi does not mention the source of his comments, of his interpretation? Was Hobana Yisoidin Medrash Chazal that have their basis in the expounded Chazal. Why does Rashi not bring down that they come from where they come from? Because they're not really just based on the Medrash, because Rashi only brings them down because they are in the pshat of the pasuk. While the pirushim, because also the pirushim that he are based from the Medrash, seinen gebuit und genommen vom Pshute shel Mikra, because they are built on and they are taken out of the literal interpretation of the pasuk. Is there mocker the pshat hakosu? So therefore, what is the source? The meaning of the pasuk. It's not the Medrash. Yes, it's, Medrash says it too, but that's not Rashi's source. Rashi's source is because it's so Pshute shel Mikra. It means it makes sense, or it's necessitated from the simple reading of the text. Und in Fall when Azah Pirush Medrash Chazal, and in cases when a commentary of the expounding of our sages is nit in ganzen lefi Pshute shel Mikra. Sometimes it's not totally in the literal level of the pasuk. Und Rashi brings in nor der far. So why would Rashi even bother quoting it? The reason that Rashi only brings it is was the poshet der pshat is the glatik kadema, when the simple meaning is not smooth or similar. So Rashi finds it necessary to bring down a medrash, even though the medrash is not totally according to Pshut Shemik. So Damol, in those cases, Bavonot Testake Rashi. So Rashi actually brings it down, and he cautions you right away. But our sages expounded or similar, so he gives you a little bit of a hint that it's not really Pshut Shemikra. So he's need move on, so it's not understood. Either way. If all these three matters are necessary, are necessitated, they come out from the Pshut Shemikra, Darf Rashi nicht zugeben, die Werte bei Bereshis Rabbe. Then Rashi doesn't have to add at the end of Bereshis Rabbe. Ob sie ist nicht muchrech im Schutte shel Mikra. If we're going to say this is not necessary in the Schutte shel Mikra, and bring us not as Medrash Chazal, was in the game Schutte shel Mikra, it's just bringing it down as an expansion of our Seder Basamari, which is connected to Schutte shel Mikra. But Rashi gedarf magdim sein, so Rashi should have introduced and unterstreichen, and he should have emphasized Rabbi Seinu Dorshu. Our teachers have expounded. So he should introduce it by saying that this comes from the Medrash. But here he brings down the Pshat, and then he just ends up with a reference to Bereshis Rabbah. What does that mean? The Rebbe is going to explain in his Gimel that it seems from the pasuk that what made Yitzchak's final decision, even after all the miracles that Eliezer told Yitzchak, how he found Rivka and how she agreed to come with him, the whole story and the miracles that the Eved experienced on the road. Yet it seems from the pasuk that what convinced him with these last thing, that's why Vayiviyahu. And it seems like each one of these words, are what pushed him. Technically, we didn't even have to use these words at all. The Torah could have said, he brought him by Yeviyahu and he married her. Why does it have to say to the Oyela Sara Imay? Each one of these words, Oyela Sara Imay, tells us about one of the miracles, and that is the proof and the source for Rashi, as we will see inside. Gimel. Is there beer in that? The explanation in this, the Schwerigkeit was Rashi bavornt, is in the alle drei Wörter ha'oyelo sora imay. The difficulty that Rashi is coming to answer over here is in all the three words ha'oyelo sora imay. That's why Rashi brings them down. The Rebbe asked before, because these three words ha'oyelo sora imay are difficult. But that is mighty. That's what Rashi quotes them. He quotes them. Because superficial, on the first glance, they seem to be extra. The Torah is the Torah is here to tell us. As when Rivka is angekommen mit Eliezer, that when Rivka arrived with Eliezer had bald, and Eliezer immediately, while he was outside, never made it into the tent. He was outside. The Zilt Yitzchak, he related to Yitzchak wegen alles, was mit ihm hat passiert, about everything that happened with him. Hat Yitzchak dennoch hereingebracht Rivka, then Yitzchak brought Rivka in, und sie genommen für Freude and took her for his wife. Hat the Pasuk bloß gedacht sagen, then the verse should have just said, Vayiviyahu Yitzchak, Elov, he brought him with the word Elov, around the word Elov, and Vayikachas Rivka, and he took Rivka Vatila Lisha, she became his wife. Was gibun zu die Wörter ha'oyela sora imay? What do the words ha'oyela sora imay add to the narrative over here that Yitzchak married Rivka after the Eved brought him to him? Is der fun verstandig? So from this we understand that actually this was a push for Yitzchak to marry her. The fun verstandig as ha'oyela sora imay is moisif epis, that the Oile Sora Imay adds something was his negeya zum oisfir, which is important which connects to the conclusion. He took Rivka, she was his wife, is because of these three words, which means that the mid zok Torah the pam und siba. With this, the Torah tells us the reason and the cause was on Bavoigun Yitzchok that convinced Yitzchok to nemen Rivka to take Rivka, which means this them is as by im nid given kindover muchlot. Until then, it wasn't something totally decided. This case, which means Gam Eliezer had der erzählt Yitzchok, even though Eliezer related to Yitzchok, wegen dem wunderlichen Nisindiken Eufen, about this miraculous, wondrous way. As is how all this all happened. You know, it happened exactly according to the signs that he set up. If the woman will say, I will give you and your camels, and this proved him. So Gil Aloi Nisim Shenasu Loi, quoting from the Rashi, that he revealed to him, to Yitzchak. Eliezer told him the Nisim that took place to him, Shekovtza Loi Haaretz, that the land jumped, that he had Kvitza Saderech, Vishin is Dam, Rivka Bitfilos, and that Rivka happened to come to him by his prayer, as quoted in Rashi. So in addition to that, was those also Eliezer angenommen. All this, Eliezer took this as abavais, that this is a proof, as oiso hilchachto la'abdechol Yitzchok, that you have chosen, you have verified this woman Rivka as the wife for your servant Yitzchok. As Rivka is mit ihrer Meiles passig zu sein Yitzchok früh. That Rivka, with her greatness, special qualities, is fitting to be Yitzchok's wife. Von deswegen. And yet, is Yitzchok noch nicht gewesen im Ganzen sicher. Yitzchok was not yet entirely sure, as sie ist takke bedoime zu sein Mishpocha, that she is actually similar to his family, that zu sein Mutter Sara in Tzidkes v'chulu, to her mother, to his mother Sara in her righteousness, etc. That was the purpose that he sent them in the first place, to find a wife so that it should be a family member with the righteousness. Was to leave them. That was the reason. Because of this, he sent them. El Arzi Vel Moiladati, we're going to go to my land, to my birthplace. Bisas is given but the convincing and the decision and the final ultimate decision was then he knew that this is it, this is the wife. Bald as by Yitzchak oil goymer is Yitzchak, since when he brings it to the oil, that brought about, that's when Yitzchak's decision came about. Musman Zogan, so we have to say, as nisim, that he was seeing greater miracles on wunder and wonder from the Fried than the previous one. There had to be more fantastic miracles to convince him, because he's already seen miracles, and yet he wasn't 100% convinced. So he had to be shown so even greater miracles. The full his damus, that had brought out the full comparison to Mishpachas Avram, to Sara Befrat, to Avram's family, and specifically to Sara. Und das lernt Rashi, is talking about rumors in the Werte. This Rashi learns is hinted in the words Ha'oyala Sara Imay. What it means, Erod Gizen Anes, that he saw, Yitzchak saw a miracle in Verbundung mit Ha'oyala, something about the oil. He also saw a nes in Hazamenheim with Sora. Nes with Sora, oil or Sora. And a nes in Shaykhus mit Imay, and a nes as it relates to his mother. These are the three details which Rashi is going to, the Rebbe is going to explain, that convinced Rashi to bring about these three miracles that Rashi explains, as we will see in Ois Dalet. Ois Dalet. Und Ois Firlach Leuten Seder, and to articulate this according to the order, Ha'oyah, when it says mitahei hayidiyah, the tent, to the tent, aneis was is verbunden mit dem oil, that is a miracle which is associated with the oil, with the tent. Das heißt, that would mean, was teilt ois dem oil von alle andere oilhalim, that distinguishes this oil from all other tents. As es wird angerufen, so that we refer to it, oilo, mit ahei hayidiyah, the known, den bekannten, berühmten oil, the known, the famous oil. Und das führt zu verstehen, and that leads us to understand, das meint onon koshur al ha'oil, that it means the cloud that was tied to the tent. Warum? Man hat schon endlich zu dem gelernt beim Pasuk, because something similar we already learned by the verse, by Yar es hamokim merachik. So the place from a distance, ha mokim, the place. As those was a gewisser mokim is getelled, the fact that a certain place is distinguished, separated in heiligkeit, in holiness, bis es wird angerufen hamokim, to the extent that it's distinguished, that we call it the place, mit a hey hayidiyah, with the known hey, a hey, which tells us known, is das gewend durch dem was onon kosher al hahor, that was through the fact that there was a cloud tied to the mountain. Our statement, is the hadgoshe ha'oyalo, so we understand that here too, the emphasis is ha'oyalo, hey hayidiyah, onto that the known hey, to point to the same kind of miracle of the cloud being tied to the tent. That is, that this was distinguished, this oil from the others. So that's oil. Then Sora. Sora nes in Azar was bazunder shayches to Sora, a miracle that has a special connection to Sora. And we already learned about Sara, about the bread that she baked. Welche men versteht davon, well, which we can understand from that. We already learned earlier in Parshas Vayera, in the section of Vayera. When the angel came as guests to Avram, hat sich allein vernommen mit zugreiten und erlangen die Macholim Farzei. So Avram himself occupied to prepare and to serve the food for them. Erzählt aber die Teure wegen ein Eisnab. The Teure, however, relates one exception to all the work that Avram did. It says, Vayimahir Avram ha'oyelo el Sara. Avram rushed to the tent to Sara. Vayomer, and he said, Mahari Goimer, quickly, etc. Soiles lushi vasiubis, from the fine flour, knead and make into cakes. This haste, that means knead kokendik of Avram Avinu's groise hishtadlus, notwithstanding Avram Avinu's great effort to mekayim zayin the mitzvah sachnosis orchim, to observe, fulfill the mitzvah of taking in the guest, these as alei, to the extent that he himself did it. Chocher hat gelitten groß Zad im jenem Tag, although he was suffering lots of pain in that day. He's gelaufen, he ran, und gebracht Farzea ben Bokar, he brought from them a young cattle, hat aber das knetten und zugeregt dies, however, this kneading and preparing of the dough, in ganzen Ibigelos for Sara, he left it entirely for Sara. But das gehört dafke zu ihr, that belongs to her. The kneading of the dough, that belongs to her. The mele, and therefore the bald in unser Pasuk is ongedeit, since in our Pasuk it's pointed to. As is geschehen anes miyuchad, that there was a specific miracle in Epes Vasotutam Mitzara b'miyuchad, something which is connected specifically with Sarah, is moving ados is given b'shayches mider isu. So then it's understood that this was with connection to the dough, bracha metzuya be'isa, the blessing that was found in the dough. So now we have already ha'oyala, that's the onon. Sarah is the dough. Then we say imoy, his mother. Oycha ben Chomesh Mikra, also a 5-year-old who starts the Chumash, studied the Chumash, Beis und Bamert, he knows and he notices, Chocher hat wegen dem noch nicht gelernt, although he hasn't learned about it, as Sinden Licht Erev Shabbos, that the lighting of the candles before Shabbos is an ois namlicher inyan, that's an exceptional matter, was geheret zu Freuen Bechlal, that belongs to women in general, ubefrat zu Imoy, and especially to his mother. Is beis lernt wegen anes, when he is studying, learning about a miracle, was is verbunden mit Imoy, which is connected with his mother. Versteht euch der ben Chomesh le Mikra. So also the 5-year-old who's learning Chumash understands the shayches mit adlokas ner Shabbos, the connection with the lighting of the light of Shabbos. Zendig with the mutter tutus yed ner Shabbos. The fact that he sees that his mother does it every Shabbos Eve. Now, the truth of the matter is, it's not only the mother, the girls that are before the wedding, etc. But not always is there other girls in their house. Although lighting of the candle is connects not only to his mother. Also those who are before their wedding, as we will explain later on, is as aber nicht umetun. That's not always. It's not everywhere, or nicht allemal, not always. As the lighting of the candles from his mother, which is everywhere and always. It's possible, as the Ben Chomesh hat nicht kein Schwester. It could be that the 5-year-old does not have a sister, or there's ein Schwester is gar klein. Maybe he has a very small sister who can't light the candles yet. Is verstanden, but based on these 3 words and these 3 miracles that each word represents, it's understood. Was Rashi bringt nicht darauf, why Rashi doesn't bring down then Fertningen, the 4th matter which the Medrash brings down with welche Rivka is given ähnlich zu Sara, with which Rivka was similar to Sara. We may gefind this in Medrash as we find it in the Medrash. That Dalsis Persuch, the doors are open wide. The Baldas in Pashtus gefindt sich in Pasuk an Ondai, since simply in the Pasuk we just find a pointing blois of the drei Sachen only to these 3 things. But yet, now we wonder the order of Rashi. So, Ha'oyala, it talks about the Onon, and then talks about the dough, and then it talks about Neres. How come Rashi switches the order? As bleibt noch the Shaila. Okay, no, that's the second question. The first question, why does we have to say that it was such a great miracle that it lasted from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos? As bleibt noch the Shaila from wann it is gedrungen, how do we derive as the Lichtam gebrennt as so lang that they burnt for so long, Erev Shabbos, from one Friday before Shabbos to the next Friday. I feel as if gebrennt a ganze meisles, even if they would have just burned 24 hours, Koyetzeber similar is a it's also a great miracle. This Shaila Bavorot Rashi, the mitzvah is Meisif. This question Rashi answers by adding Bereshis Rabbah. That this particular detail that it was torn a whole week burning is Bereshis Rabbah, which means in Derech Havshat is Taka Sofik Vilang de Lichtot Gibren. That in the style, as we learned, the simple meaning. So it's actually doubtful how long the lights actually burned. That's the way it says in Bereshis Rabbah. As the Licht hat gebrennt, Erev Shabbos, that they were burning from one Friday to the next Friday. Now it comes back to the question, the order in Rashi. Hey, if you say, according to this, it's even more not understood. They're saying that in Pirush Rashi, the order in Rashi. Rashi starts with Ner Doluk Erev Shabbos, with the lit candle from Erev Shabbos, and then to Bracha Mitzuya, the blessing that was found in the dough, and then Va'anon Kosher Ala Oil, the cloud that was tied to the tent. Was need is as Behepech was say that in Medrash, according to the Rebbe's explanation. Now it's not only that it's opposite of the order in the Medrash, as the Rebbe pointed out before, but if Farkeret from them say that, but this is also opposite than the order. As they are hinted in the pasuk, Ha'ayallah, Sara, Imay. If you declare Ha'ayallah is anon kosher, that would refer to the tide cloud. Sara is bracha mitzvah beisa, that there is the blessing in the dough, and Imay ner dolog v'chulu. Maybe this was the order, the way things happened. Maybe Rivka happened to be Erev Shabbos, so the first thing she did was lighting the candle. We can't say, as they say that in Rashi, that Rashi's order is Behesem mitten Seder, with the drei Sachen passiert by Rivka. It fits the order as they happened by Rivka. But even if we should assume Aziz gekommen Erev Shabbos for Nacht, that she came on Friday before nighttime. And the first thing that she did was she lit the candles. Is aber poshet, but it's obvious as the nest when they're dog made of Shabbos. But this miracle, this great miracle from Shabbos to Shabbos, but you can't gizever nor noch dem zen from onokoshofulim. That could have only been visible after the cloud that was tied. So that full miracle of the lighting of the candles was not visible right away, even if she'd come to Erev Shabbos. So what is the order? So Rashi should have begun, like the Seder being Pasuk in the Medrash, should have said the way the order is in the Pasuk in the Medrash, mit onon kosher al ha'oil, the cloud tied to the oil, the erste nest was passiert by Rivkes, anaikum in oil. That was the first miracle that as soon as she came to the oil, to the tent, there was the cloud there. The cloud came down and tied itself to the oil. So then the blessing that was found in the dough, that is a miracle that was visible as soon in Iris Askus in her work occupation with the dough. And only later on, the miracle from the light being lit from Erev Shabbos. So in order of things, it also was out of order. The wholesomeness, the whole entire week, you can only see this Erev Shabbos and the second Erev Shabbos. So even if we go in the order of the time as it happened, so it's also the order like in the Medrash Shabbat, not like in Rashi. Is the beard in them is the explanation of this. The Baldas der Inyan von Oyel Sora Imay. The explanation is what brought about this greatest proof to Yitzchak that he decided to marry her is hinges on the greatness of the miracle. The Baldas der Inyan von Oyel Sora Imay. These three things had gebracht. This brought them by Yichas Rivka that he took Rivka for a wife. But durch dem hat sich herausgewiesen, because through that it showed, as he is gleich to Sara Imay, that she is like Sarah's mother. Is doch verstandig, it's understood as l'chol l'roishu be'iker, that foremost and mainly is the negeya der vergleich in dem prat von tzidkes v'chulu, that the comparison should be in the detail of the righteousness, etc. That would be the most significant and the most consequential to his marrying Rivka. The far bringt Rashi. That's why Rashi brings some Ershton. First, he brings the Nes from their Doluk Mer Shabbos Letter Shabbos. That the light that was lit from one Friday to the next Friday. Das heißt, from Shabbos to Shabbos, heißt, a nes in a mitzvah was it getan. There's a miracle in a mitzvah that Rivka did. Was the Bai Verta Reisgebracht ir Meila. That expresses through that, it brings out her greatness, ir tzidkes, her righteousness, in kima mitzvahs, in the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Of them, and after that, in the order, kum der nes from Baruch Mitzuya Beisa, the blessing that was found in the dough. Was is euch verbunden mit ihrer Pool is that also is connected to her actions, to her activities, aber schon nicht in Zusammenhang mit a mitzvah, but that's not associated with a mitzvah, it's the baking, the dough. Und erst noch, and finally, the third thing, a neis, a miracle, in a zach, was is schon äußer von ihrer Pool, something which is outside of her action. It's not that she does, there's a cloud tied to the oil. Nicht in a mitzvah, not in a mitzvah, number one, und euch nicht in a pool, not what she is doing, was sie hat getan. Okay, so this explains in Pashtus the idea. So the Rebbe is going to go over now to the very wondrous things that we find in the Rashi. Well, from the Yonim and from the Pirush Rashi, from the wondrous ideas that we find in this Rashi. Bald as Vayikachas Rivka goyim v'goyim, since he took Rivka, Yitzchak marrying Rivka, is given erst noch dem Verot ba'ir gesehen. It was only after he saw their Doluk Mer Shabbos, Letter Shabbos, we get it free. That is after he saw that she lit the candles first, as we said before. Zetman der Fun, so we see from this as the Anhoke for Rivkin is given that the conduct of Rivka was to Tzidden made a Shabbos Kodesh, that she lit the lights of the Shabbos Kodesh also before the wedding. Nochmer. Furthermore, not only was she not married then, Lidas Rashi, according to Rashi's opinion, because that was the impetus why he married her. I mean, she was before the marriage. But according to Rashi, she was only 3 years old. Is the Rivka b'shas the chasnik when Raya out? She was 3 years old at the marriage. In dem elter, when she's noch nit oder chiv mitzvahs. That's an age where there is no obligation of mitzvahs. Und von deswegen, and yet, hat sie schon demut mekayim mit the mitzvah von Adlokas Nedus. She already fulfilled then the mitzvah of lighting the candles. The Seder Mizu. And more than this. This became a matter and a sign, a main sign to verify that she is like his mother, to make the decision so he should go ahead and marry her. Especially, that if she had not lit the candles, there would be no Shabbos light in the house. There was other light of Shabbos in the house. Since Avram, our father, he observed, fulfilled the entire Torah. The mitzvahs, the Rabbanon, also the rabbinic mitzvahs, Rashi brings this up as Rashi brings it down, that he did all the mitzvahs, even Eruv Tchumim, which is mitzvahs midrabanan. So therefore, the din is, the law is, if the fruit mentioned it can live of Shabbos, that if the wife does not make the blessing over the candles, and that if Shabbos means the time she for whatever reason, I've just told the man, so the husband needs to do that. So we have to assume, accept, as von Zin Sara is nifter geworden, that from the time that Sara passed away, hat Avram and Yitzchak gezogen Licht, he had Erev Shabbos. Avram and Yitzchak, they lit the lights every Erev Shabbos. So there was light in the house because Avram and Yitzchak were light. Und von deswegen hat sich Rivka nicht beeindruckt, and yet Rivka was not satisfied mit den Lichtern von Avram Avinu, with the lighting of the candles from Avram Avinu. Was is given a God mitzvahs. The shaychus, he was an adult, and he was obligated in the mitzvahs as they were applied in that time. She wasn't satisfied. She lit the lights by herself on her own. Although she was only minor, only 3 years old. So from this we have a very clear lesson, instruction. Behesem to them was much fitting to what we have already spoken many times. As not only those girls who are obligated the mitzvah, they're after 12 years old, that are not married yet. Before the chas, Dafim mentioned the Shabbos need to make the blessing on the Shabbos lamps, Shabbos candles, not as but also little girls on Hebendik from 3 years out, starting with 3 years old, who are not yet obligated the mitzvahs, if they are already connected, that they can understand the badaitum von adlokas neir Shabbos, the meaning of the lighting of the Shabbos lamp. Darf man sie mechanech sein, so we need to educate them in their mitzvah von adlokas neir Shabbos kodesh, in the mitzvah von adlokas neshek, from lighting the lamps of the holy Shabbos. Even in a situation when in Hoyz is the mutter, in the house there is the mother, or the under or others, was sind licht als mitzvah that are lighting it because they're commanded, they're doing, because they're by mitzvah, by benois mitzvah, and that so still the little girl should light the candles. Azavos mechuv de napidin. There's somebody who is obligated in the lighting of the candles al pi halacha. Still, we should light, the little girl should light it as well. Well, you're going to say that we can't compare a 3-year-old today to Rivka, who was a 3-year-old then. When Agam as Rivka is done, even though Rivka at the time, by Idra when she was 3 years, even a Sach Mer Bardas, she was a lot more intelligent. Bidosi's Amedel Stam in the melted, then it would be an ordinary girl at that age. As we see very clearly from the happenings with Eliezer and how she was on a very mature, even though she was in age only 3. Was hat Medaille given in Idemaisim, and Eliezer took note exactly how she was doing it. Und der Vater hat sich gefordert ihr das, and that's why, because she was intelligent, because she was mature, we required her consent. Ihr Zustimmung zum Shidduch, she had to agree to the match. And to the extent that Rashi said before, as we learned that we learn from this, as ein masina so isha stama gedola, that we don't marry a woman, which would also include an adult, elomedaita, only with the consent, and that is because Rivka wasn't just a child, but Rivka was like an adult in her intelligence and maturity. So how do we bring a proof from Rivka that she lived by 3 years old, and mature, exceptionally mature to all 3-year-olds? But since at the end of the day she was nicht mehr wie 3 years old, she was only 3 years old. Many long time before Bas Mitzvah. So according to the Torah law, she had the law as a minor. So we could learn from Rivka that she lit the candles by the age of 3, that 3-year-old should light the candle. Zion. There's another wondrous thing we see in him. As we said, it is sure that Avraham Avinu himself was lighting candles yet in Erev Shabbos, every Shabbos. And his light did not burn for a whole week. When the Torah is made, and the Torah testifies, as it is given, that he came with days and God blessed him with everything, which means spiritually as well. But this for sure means when he say he came in days and he was blessed, means also other V'koshken, and for sure in Ruchnis, in spirituality. Von deswegen, and yet is in Zayin, the in Yitzchak's, in his, as is in Yitzchak's, Adloken it given that in Yaniflo, there wasn't this wondrous matter for Neir Doluk Erev Shabbos, from the lamp being lit from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos. Vidos is given by Lichtzin von Sara, as it was by the lighting of the candles of Sara. And then noch by Rivka, and then by Rivka. When she started to light 3 years. So Sara and Rivka, the women, they had this special miracle that the men didn't have. Here we see the humongous strength, the tremendous power was leaked in their mitzvah from Hadlokas Hanedes that lies in the mitzvah of lighting the lamps. Even from very small, 3-year-old Jewish girls. Was each Jewish daughter is referred to, is called Basara Rivka Rachel Leah, a daughter of Sarah, Rivka, and Rachel Leah. As durch ihre Adlokas Haner, through her lighting of the lamp, wird beleuchten das Ganze, the entire house is illuminated. B'meshach von a ganze Woche for an entire week. Bis dem Kundik and Erev Shabbos till the following Erev Shabbos. The Unterschied is in them. The difference is in the fact, over there literally it was burning. It was the miracle man of Shabbos. Was the notice was Sara and Rivka gezünden, the lights that they lit, haben sehr Lichtigkeit gepeult und beleuchten offener. Hey, their light impacted and they illuminated openly, offenheit. The Gashmi different in the house, the physicality. The Baal der Gashmis the Keneir had b'derech nes gebrennt mer Shabbos of Shabbos, because that physical lamp had miraculously burnt for an entire week. But in the inner matter of things, is thus azoi by yederer. The same thing really happens by each of the women. Was bench licht, a bench licht. Agam as be'ene boso zetmen. Although in the eyes of flesh we see this, we don't see that. But we have to say this happens here on a spiritual level, that the light that the woman lights that Shabbos illuminates the entire week. But since as Maisa obviously since the act of the fathers is a sign when an asinas koyach lebonim and gives strength to the children, so every one who is a daughter of Sara, Rivka, etc., the koyach, the power, as the mitzvah lichtigkeit for the Shabbos, that the light of the mitzvah that is from the Shabbos light, so poil zayin of the ganze Woche to impact the whole week. And yet there is another very beautiful and wondrous matter over here. Ches, noch an yinif. Davke ba'adlokas neidos from katanis. This is something specifically when it's lit by the minors. The previous thing is by women b'chlal. We talked about the women have an advantage over men, that the men's candles don't last for an entire week. Women's last, the impact, whether physically by Sara and Rivka, or at least in a inner way, in a spiritual way, by all women. But there's something special by the lighting of the lamps of the minors. Shas Chazal, seine Mafli dem Inyan von Hevel von Limud HaTorah. When the sages of blessed memory speak in a very wondrous way, the idea of the ear of the study of Torah that comes from the children. As if them haltzig the world, world is stands on the Torah of the Hevel Shein Beichet, on the children's Torah learning. Zog ze gleich dabei. They say as dosis Hevel Shein Beichet, that this is an ear that hasn't have any sin from Tanekis Shabbat and Dafke. Those are children that go to school and they don't not yet responsible and they have no sin. The Funish verstandig benegeya der Maila. So from this we can also understand as far as the advantage from the Hadloka Vasiyas there's a word here. Vasiyas Hayad she'im beichet dafke. When a hand, a little child, uses her hand, and that hand doesn't have, just like by the mouth doesn't have, when Torah doesn't have any sin, a hand that doesn't have a chet. But based on this, we need to understand the even the amount of Mila, this above mentioned advantage that children, because their mitzvahs has no sin, their comes from a holy hand. So why is it only by Neder Shabbos Kodesh? It's doch by alle mitzvahs in Yonim. It's by all mitzvahs that matters. Was ketanim is two mitzvah chinuch that little boys and little girls do because of education, and you always could say that they're doing it with a pure ein boichet hand. Haven't seen any svarim to explain this, that there is an advantage of the action of minors when they do it for chinuch. Specifically, this relates to the adlokas neighbors from Ketanis. Test. That a tam was dafki the neighbors from Sara and Rivka. The reason why specifically the lamps of Sara and Rivka, the neighbors from Allah Zera Techter, and also the lamps from all of their daughters, all Jewish women and Jewish girls in all time, old times. But Gebrent Merev Shabbos, Lerev Shabbos, and they were from Friday to Friday. From one Erev Shabbos, the next Erev Shabbos, we need the natives from Avram, and not Avram's lamps, Bnei Yisrael B'chlau, Jewish peoples in general. Is verstandig from the Maimar Azal, is understood from the saying of our sages of blessed memory. As the Inyan from the man b'shteit, that what is the main function of the husband, in them was it is maybe chitim. He is the one that brings the wheat home. Not in bringen ze in Stuarein. He provides, he brings it to the house. And the arbet from the fruit, the job of the woman, is from Ezer Kenegdei. The support that is together with him is to verwandeln the chitim in a meichel aroi lodem, is to transfer these wheats that he brought to the house into a food that is fit for human consumption. Das heißt, it means that Eibishter hat eingestellt die Teva from Welt. Hashem set up the nature of the world in an oifen in such a way as ish darkei lichbosh. The man's way is to conquer. Zu der orberen Sachen von der draußen dicken Welt, to acquire matters from the outside world, und sie hereinbringen in sein Haus, and to bring it into his house. Like on the other hand, the Freud, the wife, the woman, is adrabe, but here's the contrary, called kvuda bas melech pnima. The honor of a daughter of a king of the woman is in the inside. Und der river, and therefore, als the akeres habais, since she is the mainstay of the house, is oivgabe prima. Her obligation is in the inside, in a venik, in the inside, in the house. So misaken sein, to fix und übermachen, to change, to transform. Und die hereingebrachte Sachen, these things that have been brought in, they sollen sein roi loden, they should be fitting for the human. This to roi kav yochel loden alien, to the extent to make it fit so to speak, for the supreme man, for Hashem. And therefore, B'shas Avram hat gebenched Licht. When Avram benched the candles, it nicht sein Tafkid, since it's not his job to vernehmen sich mit solchen Abayis, to occupy himself with the needs of the home. But das nicht gedarf wirken. So therefore, this did not, it was necessary for it to impact, bringen anes, to bring a miracle to beleuchten the house, to illuminate the home, in Gashmis dicken in the physical sense, maybe more than the nature, there's no need for it. Need dos is sein avoida. That's not the service of the man. Davke Sara v'Rivka, specifically Sara Rivka, noch zei alle b'nei Sara v'Rivka hulu. And after Sara and Rivka, following them, all the daughters of Sara and Rivka, etc. Ali Yiddish Tachter, all Jewish daughters, was there he gave them Tafkid. Hashem gave them this mission, this job on the Shlichus, and the mission to oisig sein in the Tzorche Habayis, to occupy themselves in the needs of the home. Und oizuton oich in the Gashmis the Kinyonim from Shtub, and to accomplish also in the physical matters of the home. Haben zij the Shlichus und dem Koyach, they have the mission and the power to bavirkun, to impact, to influence, and they can illuminate with their candles the ganze Stub, the entire home, von der ganze Zeit, and during the entire time. As a meshach von alle Wochen Tag, that during all the weekdays, Zetmen, Adosis Ashtub, this is a home, was Basora Rivka in der Ongezun an der Shabbos, that the daughter of Sara Rivka lit the Ner Shabbos, its candle. So you can tell, because that's the job of a woman. The job of a woman is to transform the house and make it in such a way. So while the Rebbe questioned this idea before, why would little girls associate only with that special for lighting candles and not by other mitzvahs? So the Rebbe remains that with the issue. But here, whose job is it to illuminate the house and to make a change so that it's lasting? That is mainly the women's, and that's why the men lighting of the candle, Avram Yitzchak, did not last for the week. Yud Alpia now, but when euch verstehen der Seder from the drei Sachen in Pirush Rashi, based on the above, you can also understand the order of these three things in Rashi. The Pnimis Inyonim, in the inner matter of things. The Forshim say, as the drei Inyonim was Rashi bringt, that these three aspects that Rashi brings, the Ner Doluk of Shabbos, the lit candle from Friday, of Shabbos to the next Friday, to next, and the Bracha Metzuya Be'isa, and the blessing of the in the dough that is common, that is found in the dough, V'onon kosher al oil, and the cloud that is tied on the tent. So in the Kevin, the drei mitzvahs, they correspond to the three mitzvahs, was ein ongezog geworden b'miyuchad, that have been specifically instructed to Yiddish Techter, to Jewish daughters, to women. Challah, which is food, is the challah, the mitzvah separating challah. Nida, the taras hamishpacha, family purity. Unadlokas hanir, and lighting of the candle. Durch ophit di mitzvah von adlokas hanir, when you keep the mitzvah of lighting the candles, is ner doluk erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. That allows for the ner to be lit from erev Shabbos to erev Shabbos. This here is the mitzvah challah, the being careful in the mitzvah challah poilt, that impacts as zayin bracha b'tzui b'isa. There should be blessing in the dough. Durch das hiris in mitzvahs nida, and through the careful and the laws of nida is ben zoichet to on kosher oil. You merit to the cloud being tied to the tent. Tara bring them ananashchinan. Tara brings the cloud of the divine. To say that as man from the drei mitzvahs, and it fits the order of the time of these mitzvahs. But Rashi ausgestellt dem Seder from drei Sachen,
That's how Rashi set up the order of these three things. An upending from the dry mitzvahs, which are hinged in the mitzvahs, because these mitzvahs bring these miracles. Balvi, they made the lakum zum gila chinuch as soon as the girl comes to the age of education. The mitzvah of adlokas ner. She starts to observe the mitzvah of lighting the candles. Ner dort mer Shabbos ler Shabbos gets that blessing. Lamp is lit from one erev Shabbos to the next one. Später, wenn sie wird älter, later when she gets older, und sie hopes on to help in the Stube, but she starts to help in the work around the house. And she also starts to occupy herself in the dough. Auch später, and then later, when she gets married, the mitzvah. Then she fulfills the mitzvah of nida, taras mishpacha, family, purity, unknown kosher oil, the cloud tied to the oil. So that would mean the order that Rashi brings it down. And the Rebbe concludes that from all of the above, it's understood, in both letters at the after of this Sikha, what the Rebbe spoke, it's understood the great merit that exists when you put in effort that every Jewish girl, as soon as she reaches the age of education, should light the candles on every Erev Shabbos Kodesh, the eve of the Holy Shabbos, and Erev Yom Tov, and before Yom Tov. Through lighting the Shabbos candles, we should say this in Yiddish, them alles is verstandig. From all this we understood, them Goydel has chuz, the great privilege, was his knowing that that there is in the effort. As jede Yiddische Mädel, every Jewish girl, wie nor sie is a chinuch, as soon as she reaches the age of education, so zinden licht, kol Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Erev Yom Tov, to light the candles on every Erev Shabbos and Yom Tov. Durch Hadlokas near Shabbos, through lighting the lighted lamp of Shabbos, but men solche sein, we will merit the Erzakt in Yalkut Shimoni, as it says in the Yalkut Shimoni to the natives Zion, merit the lamps of Zion, was the Eberste of advising Hashem will show the Korev Mamish very soon, the Geula Hamitis Vashlema in the true and complete redemption. This is Mesichas Chof Mar Cheshvan, Shabbos Parshas Chyay Tavshin Lamed Hey.